Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Education Matters with Jim O'Connell. Very pleased to have you in the audience. If you're watching live, you're watching at 6 p.m. on Tuesday night. It is Tuesday, the 12th of June. And even though we're approaching the end of the school year, it is a busy time in education in Manchester. I'd like to introduce a guest that I have with me tonight, Mr. Ben Dion, who is he's a teacher at Memorial High School in Manchester and has a very well thought of show on Manchester radio on Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, right, Ben?
That's right, yeah.
So we'll get into other stuff, but I'm just going to throw it to Ben for a minute just to introduce himself. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
So do you want just to explain to people who you are? So you're a teacher at Memorial.
Yep.
What else can you tell? Are you a Manchester guy?
I've born and raised, lived in Manchester my whole life, all 30 years. Grew up on the south side, Ward 8. And I live downtown now. Went to Memorial High School. Now I teach there, which is cool.
What do you teach?
Economics.
Nice.
Fun stuff sometimes.
It is fun stuff.
I teach, it's a senior class, so mostly seniors take it. It's a required class, and unless they take some other classes. But yeah, it's a great time. It's my, I'm just finishing up my 4th year there.
Right.
So yeah, it's been great.
My daughter just graduated from Central this past weekend,
Nice.
and one of the things on the economic side, she took AP. She doesn't like me talking about it right away. I started there, but I apologize in advance. But she took AP micro and macroeconomics, which, of course, as you know, you go to college, right? Economics 101,
right.
Micro macro is always in year one, and because of the I don't know, I think it's AP or dual enrollment, whichever it is. I think it's AP for macro, and so they have the college benefit as a result of it.
Yeah,
because there's also the running start or whatever it's called for some courses.
It depends on the course, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
but they have AP micro and macro.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a wonderful thing. And for those who, I was talking to a lady today whose son is about to start in high school, and I'd forgotten, wherever you are in the layers of the cake that is education, you're sort of concentrated there. So if you've got kids in elementary school, you end up sort of thinking about elementary school issues, and as you go up through. But I was talking to this lady who was just, her son will be starting at high school in the fall. But so many things, like we talk about things like AP and newsletters like this and courses, which of course people who've been sort of through it understand, but there are people who don't. And this is one of those things that's available in Manchester, as it is in other school districts. But AP is advanced placement, and so a young person takes a course, an advanced placement course, which is a higher level course in whatever subject it may be, chemistry, math, whatever, and it's advanced placement into university. So many, but not all, many universities will accept that as meeting the requirement for that particular class, and that's one of the things that's offered in the district. And the other thing, of course, is the dual enrollment, where there are courses that have credit both at the Manchester School District, but they're also offered through SNU or through the Manchester Community College, and you end up, it's effectively having done a course there. And this becomes very important when you're going to college, because each one of them is either 3 or 4 credits, and those are credits you won't have to take. At very minimum, it means that your workload might be a little lighter in some of those tough years in college, or if you're doing study abroad or something, you can go down to, well, there is a minimum, I think, of 12 credits. But anyway, let's not wrapped up on that, because I'll go off on credits. Let's talk about graduation for a minute, because it was on last weekend. It's always an exciting time in the city.
Right.
But congratulations, Ben, and you were the commencement speaker at Memorial this year.
I was. So every year they vote for a faculty speaker, and I won. They voted for me, and I was really surprised. I'd been, they always tell us like, oh, you got third, or you were in the top, or whatever, and I never paid that much attention to it. But I guess it was my year, so they picked me, and I was very honored. Again, I graduated from Memorial High School in 2006, 12 years ago. Seems like forever ago. But yeah, it was a great honor. I was very nervous.
Must have brought a tear to your eye, right? I mean, it's a pretty emotional thing, I'm sure, right?
It was pretty emotional overall. I mean, my speech was pretty emotional. I had many students after come up to me and say, shed a little tear. Like, it was pretty emotional. And I tried to be to the point and serious, but also, try to tug at the heartstrings a little bit because you need to make that personal connection.
Yeah.
And I was very nervous.
Yeah.
But I listened to it after, and I was like, wow, I was really calm, cool, and collected.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
yeah.
And people were like, well, you do have a radio show. I'm like, that's not the same thing.
Yeah. It's a little different standing in front of an audience of course, not just the 300 graduates or whatever
Right.
it is, or the 250, but then there's all the parents and all that. So it's
Yep.
at the Verizon Center every year, and this past Saturday it lasts all year. All day. MST starts in the morning, and then the other three schools, they rotate over each year. So
Right.
yesterday it was what time was Memorial at?
We were at 10.
Yeah, 10 a.m. Then West was in the afternoon and
2.
at 2, and Central was at 6.
Yes. Yeah.
And each of these things takes about 2 hours, and then there's the logistics of getting in and out there. But
Yeah.
I think that always, we often on this program, where I've often described about the fact that I'm stuck on the horns of this dilemma, which is giving Manchester and Manchester School District full credit for the great things that happen within our district, and there are many.
Right.
While at the same time trying to shine the light on the deficiencies, because there are many of those also. And there are those who try to force you into one sort of saying, why are you being negative about our school district? Well,
Right.
what would you want me to do? Then ignore the problem, But on days like graduation days, the culmination of the efforts of everybody, teachers, parents, the community, all the sporting organizations, mentors, coaches, aunts, uncles, grannies, the whole it takes a village thing, whatever it has done to bring these young people, these young adults to the point of completion,
Right.
it's a great deal. And to see the smiles on their faces, and they all come at it in different ways, right? There's a
Right.
million paths. It's not as though they're all the same. They're going in lots of different directions coming out of there.
Some of their paths were very difficult.
I bet.
And some of them were a lot easier. And some, like I think Mr. A said at the graduation, some kids didn't have anyone there for them.
Right.
So to clap for everyone, that's really important too. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
some kids you're going to get a huge cheer because they have so many family members and friends there,
Right.
and others don't as much. So
Right.
It's good to see overall at graduation, everyone's really happy, and you get some thank yous and like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I did this, and it was a good
Like,
overall
I
graduation.
remember a kid a couple of years ago who I think he was Memorial. I know the family. But I think he was Memorial. But here's a kid who'd been in significant, in a bit of a miasma by the time he was in the end of sophomore year. Hadn't performed well, hadn't taken it seriously, had not dropped out, but had not come to school as often as he should know. So he found himself heading into his junior year and not on track to graduate, and so and had some other difficulties, socially, etc. And this kid started from midway through junior year and worked his butt off, and did credit recapture and all that kind of stuff. I don't know the exact terminology for it, but did a lot of work in a year and a half. So he's standing on the podium, or going past the podium to get his certificate. At the end was from where he started was a bigger achievement than many of the kids who were there with many beads and threads, etc., etc.
Right.
So, but the bottom line is they're all coming out of the school education system in Manchester having been made prepared for work, life, school, whatever it is. So
Right.
it's always an exciting time. It's
It is.
an emotional time. It's great, and to see the sheer numbers. Let's go to. Before I just like to go off on a tangent just from education for a minute, just talk about your radio show.
Yeah.
Because we always end up running out of time at the end of this show. By the way, if you're interested in calling in, then the call-in number here is 640-3091, and you're very welcome to call in. By the way, as a piece of information, the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting is on tonight. It's scheduled for 7 p.m., which is about 50 minutes from now, if you're watching live on Tuesday the 12th. However, that meeting has been postponed for 1 hour, or delayed for 1 hour to be more accurate, and will now be held starting at 8 p.m. It's an important meeting because this is the meeting where the budget will be decided. If a budget, we're hearing that multiple budgets will be offered tonight, If no budget is successfully passed tonight, then it will default to the tax cap budget that was offered by Mayor Craig back 2 months ago. So if you're watching live, just be aware of that. You don't have to break your neck rushing down to City Hall because you've got an extra hour. And if you are sitting home in your comfortable chair, eating your spaghetti, watching this show, you don't have to leave early. You can stay until 7 because you'll have plenty of time to get to City Hall. Unless you're watching in Saskatchewan, and then it might be more different. So back to Ben. Ben, so you have your show is on Thursday nights,
correct,
on 95.3 FM here in the city of Manchester. And I was very privileged to be asked to go on that show and was on that show, and we had fun that night, and I'd be happy to go on there again. But if you'd like to talk about your show, the issues you cover,
sure,
what you do, etc., I think people would like to hear that.
Sure. So I started off almost a year ago as a podcast, and I started because there was nothing like it. No one had a show just about Manchester covering positive and informative things. At least I didn't think so.
Right.
So I started off, and it was just started off me and my best friend just hanging out, and we had a little half-hour little show.
Right.
And then I were able to book some guests. John Clayton came on, Chief Willard came on, and then it started to kind of explode a little because I was getting bigger names on.
Right. Right.
So that was great. And eventually I approached the radio station 95.3 FM, WMNH, and they said, "We like what you're doing. We want you to do it here." And I said, "Okay, what do I have to change?" And they said, "Nothing. You're gonna do it right here, the same thing." I said, "Okay, let's do it." And then ever since November, I've been live. Before that, I was recording it like I was as a podcast, and then sending them the file. Now I do it live in studio every Thursday night, 6 p.m.
And people can call in, right?
People can call in. They interact. We have 2 to 3 callers every week.
Yeah.
But I try to have on guests that just impact Manchester, whether it's a politician, whether it's a teacher, whether it's someone that opens a business.
Right,
John Clayton, historian. Right. So we've had a pretty good mix on. I've booked guests all the way through August, so we're pretty set with some really good guests coming up. I'm in the works of booking some other big name guests.
Good.
So it's been really cool. And this week we have on 2 people that are running for state rep.
Okay.
People that have never run for state rep before. So I was like, yeah, I want to have you on because that's really cool that you're running for state rep and a first time person that's running for office.
So if people are around, you don't have to be around. If you're driving your car, if you're sitting at home, it's the weekly Dion. I'm sorry, Dion. Apologies. I'll try and get it right. It's not that hard.
It's okay.
Dion. Why did I say Dion? Dion. Okay. So the weekly Dion, it's on Thursday nights live on 95.3 FM at 6 p.m. And then it's repeated, I think, at some other times during the week. You can hear it when it's not live. It's repeated just like this show is repeated on Manchester Community Time. Now, is it ever on like Channel 16? Is it or
no? We haven't done that yet. We're on Facebook Live.
Okay.
So the live show is on Facebook Live. It's like a TV show pretty much, but just in the radio station, which is nice, and that's always going to be there, so you can always rewatch it. And I find that more people watch it on there, not maybe necessarily live, but after the fact. But we're not on TV. I don't know if we haven't really talked about that yet. I'm okay with what it is now.
Well, I mean, when what's on TV, I think, and I'm not sure how that works either. I think it's Channel 16. So when Channel 16 has nothing on it, so it's this is on Channel 23, right? Channel 22 is the government service channel, so that's where City Hall is and all that stuff. Channel 16 has like sporting events on it, like the high school games and stuff like that. But when it also has public information on there. So if you've got an event that comes up, it predates all of this, and there's like background music on there. But now, as I recall, they have radio content from the radio that plays in the background. So you're not know that. You're not watching the program on TV.
Right.
But if I'm correct in what I'm saying, I should check this for, but I'm almost certain I've heard like the guys in the morning and stuff have their show run in the background. So while it's just a photograph, like for instance, every hour or something up comes the faces and contact information for the public representatives in Manchester.
Right.
It's just a public information screen that goes by. When it's active, it's like a city baseball game from Memorial or something. You often turn it on, you'll find that stuff. But anyway, I'm just wondering, it's just a feed that comes in,
I didn't
just
know that.
Audio only.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that they do have the morning show on 95.3 is live on Channel 97.
Oh, maybe
So
that was it.
they have it on TV as
Oh.
well as Matt Connerton's show, which is going
Oh,
on right now,
right,
is
right.
on TV channel 97 too.
Right.
So I don't know if that's ever gonna
Maybe it is.
happen for us or
Yeah.
But right now, I mean,
I might have that
I like the
one.
way it is because it's pretty easy for me to run.
Yeah.
I do the Facebook Live. It's live on the radio. It's a podcast. It's on Apple
Right.
Podcasts, Podbean. You can find us everywhere.
Okay, so let's go to education. So, since that's what we do on this show, I'd just like to, I always do this every week. We just talk briefly about that which is already available to everybody on mansd.com, which is the Manchester School District.org, sorry, mansd.org. But just to reaffirm that which most people should know already, that the last day for pre-K students is June 8th. Which is already gone. It was last Friday. The last day for school students in kindergarten through grade 11 is Friday, June 15th. So we're coming to the end of the school year right now. If you go on, the calendar for next year is already published on here. And so the first day of school for K through 12 is Wednesday, September 5th. And the first day of school for preschool is Monday, September 10th. And then it has some early release dates and other things on there. The vacation weeks for next year are on there already. And the last day of school right now is June 13th of 2019, with graduation day on June 15th. So that's the open screen right there. But the big thing, I guess, is school is finishing on Friday the 15th. A lot of kids are doing final exams and tidying up things right now. I presume that you're a member of the MEA,
Correct.
the Manchester Education Association, which is the teachers' union here in Manchester.
Yep.
So the most recent news, and I know you don't have insider information, or if you do, you don't have to share it here, but I'm sure just as a member, I'm talking to you as a member of, let me put it even a different way, as a teacher in Manchester.
Right.
Forget about members and stuff. So as I understand it, an impasse has been declared,
Right.
which means that. So you know what happens next? Like where does that go
I
from
don't
there?
think it really means something definite. Like, to me, the understanding I have of it is it's just saying that as the MEA has come to an impasse, saying that they've come to the conclusion that both sides can't agree on something. That's not even
Right.
saying they can't go back to negotiate it at
Right,
all.
right.
It's just saying that we're just letting you know this is what we think of right now.
Right.
I don't think
right.
it means anything definitely.
Right.
that
Right.
they're
It's not
gonna-
the beginning of a certain trend or something like that.
No, I
So
think that's the big
So
misconception.
I presume at some point they can choose to go to arbitration of some kind. There probably has to be agreed by both parties. Or
I think it
something.
does. I think it has
Yeah,
to be agreed
yeah.
that they go to some mediator of some
Right.
sort.
I mean, the big issue, I guess, and at the school board meeting last night, there were a lot of school teachers there, and
Mm-hmm.
I spoke at that meeting last night briefly, and I was at pains to say to the members of the school board at the outset that I respect them for their time and what they do and all the energy they put into it, and of course we're going to disagree. Politically, economically, whatever, we'll have different solutions perhaps, and as I said there, I would disagree more forcefully with some than others. But in the end, they're still there as public representatives, and it's very frustrating that because of perhaps political ideology or of fear of being labelled as a spender or something, or that the evidence given by people last night, like the teacher who talked about she earns, as a para, she earns $500 per week. And she talked about she's not a young single mother, but she's a single mother. Forgive me for saying that. That's a comparative term. In other words, she was not a 21-year-old. She may have been 27. I don't know. I'm wrapping myself up in knots. But the point is, this woman talked about earning $500 a week, and having to live on that and pay for an apartment, a car for her disabled child, for and she, at the end of it, she talked about her monthly budget, and she said, when I pay for the things I pay for, actually, I have $31 left for everything, for food, gasoline, everything. So that's why she works 3 jobs. So she works in the school district, she has 2 other jobs. We pay per diems for our substitutes, I think it's $70 per day.
I think it might be 65 now, actually.
Is it 60? Yeah, we
Yeah.
did reduce it, maybe, yeah.
I think so.
So, again, $325 per week for substitute teachers. And with all due respects to those people who work at Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's, and I believe they should be better compensated, but those numbers are sub, Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's, and this is why we can't find subs in our schools, etc.
Right.
But rather than dealing with, because people like to argue about each one of those things, teacher pay, substitutes, whether we why we have to have, all you can talk about any piece you want, and people want to argue about that. The fact that we've got the highest number of kids per class of any state, any school district in the state. I keep saying this all the time. We spend less per student than every other city, town in the state. So we have all those. So why not step back and deal with the big number? And the big number in the city of Manchester is, of course, that we're stuck with a tax cap that is a throttle on our ability to fund the resources that we need. What is your thinking about the Manchester School District and its resources? I mean, as a teacher in the school district, how does it affect you on a day-to-day basis?
I mean,
or
at
your
the high school
students,
level,
more importantly, even.
Yeah, at the high school level, I feel like it's a little different than every other school level. I think elementary school has the hardest time, I think.
Yeah.
Coming from a personal standpoint, my
Right.
fiance is a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
So she buys a lot for her class. And if she didn't do that, they wouldn't have a lot of things.
Right.
Me personally, they already have a lot of these things. We do have a supply closet for certain things. If I definitely want to do something way out of the box, I think
Right.
I have to buy those things on my own. But I've been pretty fortunate to be given some resources. I had a
Right.
retired teacher that was retiring from Green Acres 2 years ago that gave me a projector.
Nice.
And not many people were able to get. I didn't have one before that.
Right.
We have some now, but I was given some resources, so it doesn't really affect me as much.
Right.
But I definitely see some other classes, like maybe art classes and woodshop classes, that are affected more because of those resources, those materials they need on a daily basis.
So then, where is the pinch then? Is the pinch in class sizes? Is it in course offerings? I mean, we don't have. We don't have a talented and gifted program, as an example, right? We've eliminated literacy programs in parts of our school district. We don't have the course offerings that are offered in other in comparable school districts.
Right.
So those have to be areas where this issue is seen. We know from conversations for the last 2 months that Memorial High School is not as clean this year as it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because we know it's not, because not enough. When we cut the Aramark is the private contractor who does the cleaning of the schools and maintenance, or cleaning at least, and we arbitrarily reduced spending on them by 5% this year. And as a result, 19 of their staff left, which was about a third of their employees. And they left because we reduced the number of hours we're paying them per day, so they no longer had a full-time job. They're already working for minimum wage.
Right.
And now they're back to only getting 6 hours a day at work. So they couldn't stay because they need, and yet that's what we did. And we continue to do these self-inflicted wounds. We continue to do this in the city of Manchester, and it's just unconscionable. Now we're seeing at Central High School the suggestion that the fourth floor of the classical building be shut down to save money on electricity and heat. While, by the way, no estimate has been given for how much might be saved. As one of my kids said to me, I don't understand. Warm air rises anyway, so it's not like I don't know how much heating you need up there. Secondly, if you ever were to shut it down properly, you can't leave it without any heat for the winter because everything would freeze there, and that is where self-contained programs, etc., are held. So you're going to be disrupting a community that exists in that floor anyway, all to save, in this case, an unknown amount of money. So on a 4-floor building of what is a 3-building campus, almost a 4-building campus, shutting one floor may seem like a sensible idea, but actually we don't know that sitting here.
Right.
The point is the school board doesn't know it either because no one's gone and looked. And then a point has been made about the security issue, which was already demonstrated to be very flawed at West High School and ended up costing the district 1.5 million over that the young lady who was raped there in a disused area of the school. So we continue to go down this road, and Let me ask you this: what do you think about morale, teacher morale? I mean, how do your fellow teachers? I mean, it's kind of putting your spot. I ask you to speak further,
That's
but
okay.
generally speaking, where do you think it is, or how do they view their positions?
I think it depends on the school, honestly.
Yeah.
I think at Memorial we're a very tight knit group.
Right.
So we all kind of feel the same way about certain things, and I think it's pretty positive at our school. But other
Right.
schools I've heard aren't.
Right.
And especially this time with contract negotiations not going well, and that has definitely put a damper on the morale for sure near the end of the year, because people are worried about, okay, next year, what do we do?
Right.
What's going on?
Right.
And what can we do to help? So
Right.
I think that's the only thing that's been definitely.
But it's also the danger that the first in, last out, or first in, first out, or last in, first out issue that exists is that there's a whole category of teachers in Manchester who, pending the outcome of these negotiations, knows that because there is no money in the budget, that you talked to the lady last night who's been in the school district 5 years and she's still on step two.
Right.
And so, if any accommodation is made with the teachers to give them anything, that the only place it's going to come from is out of their own ranks, etc.
Right.
And so, if you're sitting here as a teacher in one of the 1,200 teachers in Manchester, and you joined a school district in the last 4 or 5 years, you're more than nervous about what's going to happen next year, whether you get a pay cut or not, or pay increase or not. You're sitting looking at whether you're going to still have a job here or not. I mean, I know a guy who was an assistant principal in the city of Manchester, who last time there was a big cut in the city of Manchester, because the incoming tide came and tittled his posterior. To make a bit of a joke of a serious matter, he'd been with the district quite a number of years, but it came right up to touching him. And he was a married man with 2 kids, and he couldn't afford to stay here any longer because the tide might have gone over his head the following year. In other words, he might have been one of those caught.
Right.
So it's just very, with all the great things that happen in our school district, and there are all these great things happening, the inability of our public representatives to grasp the nettle and fund our schools properly is just so disturbing to me. And then the other thing is all the little known secrets, the whole special ed, the issues with special ed where kids are not being given the services that they need.
Right.
You look at the EL program. There was a conversation at Central just 2 weeks ago about an EL classroom where there weren't enough chairs for all the kids to sit at, and so they're scrambling to find all the chairs and stuff. And like, how can we be at that juncture? And in the same room, there was no flat surfaces. They're teaching a science class in that EL classroom, and the desks are all those ones that have got the built-in seat.
Right.
So when you've got a big man or woman who's 17 and they're trying to squeeze into the seat, which they find very difficult. They can't actually squeeze in the seat, but they're up there, the EL kids, and they can't complain loudly in English. So I'm being a little cruel, but because all those desks have a slight slope on them, so there's a teacher teaching science at high school who puts together desks with a slope on them when they want to demonstrate something. There's also a classroom that has one book, an EL classroom that's teaching, I think it's either science or math, and believe it or not, in the year of our Lord 2018, in the history of America, in the history of this great city, there's a teacher in our school this past month who was having kids sit around her so they could look at the book over her shoulder because there's one book available. So, and now we're going to have a meeting tonight to talk about education in Manchester. And the bottom line is there are some people sitting around at that board meeting who are in the let them eat cake model. This is turning into the real Jim O'Connell education show because I've blocked poor Ben out. So, what else is going on? Last night there was a rally
Yes.
before the school board meeting. How did that go?
Good. So there was a rally for the MEA, obviously just the teachers,
Right.
and we met at there was 2 meeting spots, Veterans Park and 1000 Elm Street,
Okay.
which is kind of like by the grassy plaza,
Right. Yep.
by Mechanic Street, if you don't know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. And we just kind of just walked to City Hall and marched around, made some signs, and it was a decent showing.
Yeah.
Definitely a decent showing. Definitely not the whole union, but it was a good showing. We wanted to put it out there and make sure people knew about it.
Right.
Definitely there was a school board member that joined us in the rally too, which was nice.
Okay, who was that?
David Scannell,
Dave Scannell,
Ward two.
yeah.
He joined us. He's a teacher too.
And he is a teacher himself in, was it Sahegan or somewhere? Is he?
Milford.
Milford. I knew
Yep.
it was out there somewhere.
Yep. So it was really good. We had a lot of students, a lot of kids that came too, which was
Right.
nice. And
Oh, good.
yeah, I think it definitely made them aware. And then as the meeting approached, we went up there. Not everyone stayed. Obviously,
Right.
people have some other obligations, but they showed
Yep.
their support. My dad came too, which was kind of nice.
Nice.
Wore his red shirt and came up.
There was a gentleman who gave evidence last night or spoke last night at the meeting, and he has, I think he said, I know he's got a daughter. I think he said 2 daughters, but I know him. I know his daughter. She teaches at Smith Road. But he talked about he had been involved as a teacher his whole life. He and his wife had been lifelong teachers in Manchester. He's retired now. And he talked about having been involved in negotiations and
Right.
etc. But in the end, he said, that in the end, like the right thing was done.
Right.
And today the part that frustrates me is I have I speak to people on the pro tax cap side of the house, and people who want to hold the line, and they'll sit here and tell me that they understand and know that the Manchester School District is underfunded,
Right.
and the problem is they don't know a way out of that. And to me, it does. I find that a very frustrating conversation.
Yeah.
Because there is a way out of it, or else I wish they would blazon from on high the answer that we are fully aware that we're not resourcing our schools properly, that our kids are not getting that which they deserve, but as a public representative, I'm more committed to holding the line on the tax cap than I am on doing what's right by the schools. That's the part that sort of frustrates me, because I'm very and then because I guess maybe you could have that what I think is a ridiculous conversation to some wouldn't be a ridiculous conversation. They'd say, this is the impasse we're at. We're actually at a place where we can no longer afford the public education of our children. Now the point is, once you get to there are many reasonable people in Manchester who would say that's not a reasonable answer.
Right.
Because that's what happens in small towns. And the best example I can think of is in Derry 3 or 4 years ago, in East Derry, where the board of whatever they are there, the town board, wanted to they wanted to hold the line on their budget, and so they decided they were going to close down East Derry Fire Station and remove some teachers. And they what happened was the town meeting happened, and there was a rebellion at the town meeting. And there was an overwhelming vote to increase the taxes to the level necessary to not shut down the fire station and to keep the teachers and not fire them. Now, the public in Franklin last night, on Sunday night, there was a rally in Franklin, New Hampshire, because there, to hold the line again, 14 teachers are being eliminated in Franklin.
Wow.
I don't know what size the teacher body in Franklin is,
Right.
but 14 seems like a very high number in a town as small as Franklin.
I think that's a lot regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do it here every year, right? So we have we don't
Yeah.
call it, but here we don't call it firings, because what we do is we don't replace
Right.
we don't replace those going away.
Or we transfer too.
And we transfer.
Well, transfer.
But the bottom line is we reduce the number of teachers year over year, and this has gone on, effectively by not replacing. I've made the point that to school board members that when you look at the spreadsheets that are available from the state website, and you look at like utilization or say pupil teacher ratios, and Manchester is the lowest, and when you get down to that bottom right hand column down there, and you see that you're the lowest in the state, and you've got the highest number of kids per class, and in response to that, as a public representative, your solution is that we won't pink slip anybody this year, but 14 of the retirees we won't replace.
Right.
So you're in bottom place, and you've decided to cut a little more. It just it's sometimes it seems like a never-ending story,
It always is.
It
seems
always
like.
is. So what else? Educationally in the city, do you have children?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
How do you feel about public representatives, like say on school boards and other places, not having their children in public schools?
I mean, it is their choice, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think it sends a weird message.
Right.
I personally I went to Catholic school for elementary school, middle school.
Right.
My parents, we were brought up that way, Catholic.
Yep.
My sister went to St. Casimir. Then she
Which
went to
is just closing.
Southside.
Which is just closing. By
I
the
know.
way.
I saw
It's
that a
being
couple days
rolled
ago.
into. It's going to be called. It's going to be called Bishop Leclerc.
They're combining a bunch of schools, right?
Well, I just think it's St. Casimir's is going over to St. Anthony's,
Oh, okay.
and St. Anthony's had the old St. Joe's upstairs, and so
In the St. Joe's building, that whole building's
no,
non-existent
but they're
anymore.
well, no, but
Well,
there's,
they're putting stuff in there.
there's a charter school going in there.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So,
Yeah.
so as
There's a
the,
daycare too, I think.
Yeah, as the Catholic Church abandons the field, they don't like to hear it that way, but
Yep.
as the Catholic Church abandons the field, there are others who are stepping in to take up the traces. But St. Casimir's been around for a long, long time,
Yep.
and its last year is this year. But the students will be going to a new school called Cardinal Lacroix, who's
Yep.
the guy who used to be a Trinity alum. I guess once you're an alum, you're an alum. He was a Trinity alumnus and became cardinal of in Quebec or Montreal 3 years ago, and so they're naming the school after him.
And that's going to be where St. Anthony's is now.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, they're taking St. Casimir over there, rolling it in with St. Anthony's and St. Joe's, and calling it
All three together.
Bishop Lacroix.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So things changed a lot. I mean, I was at like I told you, the downtown St. Joe's.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I went to Memorial, but
Right.
it's weird. My parents sent my sister to St. Casimir, and then she went to Southside.
Yeah.
So and the other ironic thing is that if I would have gone to a public middle school, it would have been McLaughlin,
Right.
because McLaughlin didn't exist when my sister
At
was
that
in middle
time,
school,
right, right.
and we lived on a certain side of the street. If we lived
Yeah.
on the opposite side of Hughes Road, I would have gone to Southside, because Hughes Road was the divider, I guess.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
And that was an unfortunate decision. Some of the decisions made by this, I had a discussion / argument with somebody earlier about, previous. He was talking about wastefulness in the Manchester School District, and in his account he was talking about like poor decisions that were made in the past, and one of those was the selling of the original school district building on Bridge Street.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And that's now a beautiful building that was restored, but again, somebody had to invest in it,
Right.
and then the movement to the condo, and now moving the school district, moving out of the condo, moving into West.
Right.
But other unfortunate decisions have been made also. But my kids actually went to St. Catherine's School in Manchester,
Yep.
and then went to Hillside Middle School, and from Hillside Middle School to Central.
To Central, yeah.
And I've one left there. As I said, my third child graduated there last week, so I have a son who will be a rising junior.
Oh, cool.
For next year. So
Yeah.
time goes by so fast.
St. Catherine's was our rival. When St. Anthony's and St. Catherine's, they were the big rival.
Or they
we
really-
played
yeah.
basketball. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's funny
yeah.
because a lot of those kids after St. Catherine's and St. Anthony's, you go to St. Joe's.
Yeah.
So we went from rivals to being on the same team.
Yeah,
Unless
yeah.
you went to Hillside.
Right.
So it was kind of funny because I feel like St. Catherine's usually divided a little bit. Some went to St. Joe's, some went to Hillside.
Right.
And then most people, I was in the minority when it comes to transferring to a different high school,
Yeah.
because most went to Central.
Right.
A few went to Trinity, but I think there's only 12 of us from
Yeah.
St. Joe's that went to Memorial.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting how they all broke
But now
up.
there was at graduation. They were taking photographs of the kids who from back when they were in first grade together. There were 4 St. Catherine's girls who were graduating on the same day out of Central High School. But that whole model is changing too, and
Yeah.
I've talked with a number of members of the clergy in the diocese about coming on and talking about that, and there's a place for. The place that was occupied and is being occupied by Catholic schools, which was not ever just for Catholics, right?
Right.
There's a whole sort of
Yep.
tradition of many different people going there, but it's not as though some of those schools are thriving and some are not. So that's a subject I'd love to get into someday. Let me ask you about the redistricting story. How do you feel about what are your thoughts on it, or have you done any thinking about the redistricting thing?
As a teacher memorial, the biggest concern for us over there was the preschool.
Right.
Because moving a whole wing or a whole section of the building and changing how we do things day to day was a big concern for us, because the proposed plan, I think, was to take what our English wing is and basically move it out of there and put the preschool there. And then I think they were moving part of the parking over there too,
Right.
which is teacher parking or faculty parking,
Right.
and moving that to the side too. But it was definitely some.
And they're going to build a separate entrance, new
Right.
little kid bathrooms. So there's a $2 million
It was a decent amount of money that was going to go into that.
but
I'm
it
not
was
really.
1.5.
I think as worried as much that's going to happen.
Right.
But it's definitely a worry, because I think we do a pretty good job on Memorial when it comes to, compared to the other high schools. I think
Right.
we're one of the ones that do our jobs very, very well. We're very consistent, and
Right.
that's that's an altering thing.
Yeah.
Even MST coming over is
Yeah.
changing things around at our school too, because they're bringing different languages, language classes, as well as I believe phys ed.
Yeah.
To Memorial, so that's going to change some things around as well. Not as much
Yeah.
as they initially thought, but it's definitely going to change some things.
Right. Well, we're seeing a change we're seeing a change there. We're seeing the change at West with the addition of the school district moving in there to take up space,
Right.
and then there's to be a what is it, the Velcro Academy or Velcro University or something is
I don't know much
happening
about
there,
that.
which is that's so this is an effort at sort of trade school, having kids who will have work on trades, etc. So
Yep.
it's part of that model, which is wonderful. The problem with all of it, though, is that it's all very it's all done. It's trying to do one's best to move the district forward in the face of the onslaught of reduced resources year in and year out. And so every place you look, what we're doing is tightening belts, squeezing, and trying to get an extra bang out of our dollar. And I frankly I resent the idea. I listened to School Board Chairman Art Beaudry speak last night, and I like Art Beaudry as a guy, and he and I get on well, I think. So but I don't want to pick on him, but he just happened to be the one who said it. He's
Right.
not the only one to say it, but he said last night, as our school population continues to decline. This was a question about, had we looked at, sports programs. So there was an issue about doing a combo lacrosse team between Memorial and West.
Yep, I heard
so
about
the
that,
boys or girls lacrosse would be a combo team. And so in response to that and some other pieces, he said, have we looked at these things? Are we looking at these things not just at lacrosse, but in other places, etc., because we're likely to see more of this as our school population continues to decline. And I literally did this in the back seat. There were only about 6 people left sitting there, but I gave it one of these as in time out. No, wait, where does this come from? And like I said, if Art Beaudry is listening or he's on your way to the meeting, my apologies, Art. I'm not picking on you because I am picking on you a little bit, but other people would have said the same thing. But I'm not okay with that at all. The
Right.
premise is all. What do you mean, as a long-term school board member, having the presumption? There are some on that board who would be very happy to oversee the continuing decline of Manchester public schools, because they're on record as saying that they don't believe the public schools work in the beginning. So you're sitting alongside people, Mr. Beaudry, who don't like the school district that they're actually in charge of managing, and they make it plain that that's the case. But from Mr. Beaudry, Art Beaudry, who was given, I know, for a lifetime. I mean, I know he was a firefighter originally, but, he's given a long time and a lot of service to the city
Right.
and to the school district, and I admire him for that. And like I said, I hate sort of trying to pick words nicely, and but you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not going right
Right.
after Art, but when did it become okay in the burgeoning, growing, exciting city of Manchester, where we're doing things and we're making things happening, and the army is happening, and the there's all kinds of wonderful things happening in the city with companies moving in and all this stuff, and we have public representatives writ large, but a school board in particular, and the most senior person in the school board is saying, as our population of students continue to decline, it's not declining because of demographic trends.
Right.
It's declining because there are schools opening up left, right, and center around the city, because you continue to underfund the schools. And I talked to a lady 2 or 3 months ago who was in tears, literally crying in my face, saying that she couldn't take it any longer, that her son was in a class of 29 kids at Webster High School in second grade, and she was moving him out to a school where he'd be in a class of 16, and her words to me was, "I just can't do this to my kids anymore," and she started crying. And I sorry, Arthur, and it just galls me no end at a public school board meeting to listen to public representatives make it the presumption that that's it. Why don't they turn off the lights, get rid of the teachers, and shut the buildings down now? Like, why are we going through a 20-year process of destruction?
Yeah.
You're either improving or disimproving over time. There's no like standing still. So I find that very upsetting. The fact that there are something like, I think it's, I've forgotten the number now actually, I was going to say 2,600. But there are a large number of students now in the city of Manchester who are not going to public schools, who are going to charter schools and going to homeschooling, and what is not what people are not willing to recognise, but I want to tell them, and I tell them often, is probably the worst education you can get in the city of Manchester is in a couple of our charter schools. I mean, you'd have to go a long way to find worse places. There are also good charter schools.
Right.
I'm not saying they're all bad, and nationally there's no correlation at all between better academic outcomes and charter schools. So this idea, but we have part of it is the parents trying to make the right decision. They're suspicious of public schools. They hear people like me saying that there are problems that need to be resolved, and so without knowing better, and I don't mean to be condescending, but if they haven't had their kids in public schools, they're like, I'm out. And then there's a long list of people I meet who are the aggrieved, who have a problem with Mr. Dion at Memorial because he tells their son that, no, you are getting an E this year or an F because you did not do your work.
Right.
And the parents' reaction is, well, I'm taking my kid and I'm homeschooling him. Or I'm taking my kid and I'm sending him to a charter school. And I meet people all the time who have, you got people who've got, anyway, I don't want to get into the details of who they are, or I mean of the type of problems that they have. But, today, there are people who are, I call them the aggrieved, who I saw it happening at Hillside Middle School when I was PTO president there, where parents didn't like the decision of the administration, which probably was the right decision, but I've seen parents literally hopping from one leg to the other, dancing up and down about something that they were entirely wrong about.
Right.
But it's like, well, I'll take my little Johnny and I'm sending little Johnny to Joe Blow's charter school, where there may or may not be qualified teachers. I mean, one of the best known charter schools in the city of Manchester has a guy teaching the highest level of civics and social studies and history, etc. In that school, and this guy's he's just a dyed-in-the-wool free stater. He doesn't believe that. He believes that the state of New Hampshire should leave the Union, and he wants total libertarianism, and that's who your 14-year-old is listening to every day for the 40 hours or 30 hours a week that he's in that school. If he's at that age, that's what he's getting, spoon-fed all day, every day. If you want that, that's fine.
Right.
But and that's one of the I would consider it a reasonable charter school that does a reasonable effort at providing an education.
Right.
What else would you like to talk about, Ben? What else is going on?
I mean, the school's coming to an end. Last day is on Friday. We have finals this week in the high schools.
All right. Yeah.
So it's kind of a calmer time in the school, because there's
Right.
only 2 finals per day, and then we have 2 workshop days next week to finish up the school year.
Right.
So
what about, there's this whole thing Dr. Vargas has talked about, is the education gap in the summertime. That kids leave, or we know that there's a big drop in knowledge or understanding or whatever, that kids go off and leave the school for 2 months,
Right.
and they come back in September, and then you're down to you have to. It takes you September into October to get them back to where in June. Have you thought about that, or do you do anything to ameliorate that, or I mean, do you give summer work or
Well,
anything?
I have mostly seniors in high school, so it's a little
so they're-
different. And high
yeah.
school can be a little different when it comes to that anyway, because some classes do give. I mean, English classes have reading lists or certain books they have to read, maybe write a paper about or something. So it really depends on what the class is.
Right. Yeah, because I think it's an important matter for parents to understand that, I think it's important that kids have time off, that they get a break from school. I think that's important.
Right.
You can't keep your pedal to the metal all year long. You see this in sports all the time, that kids play sports all year round, and they're just kind of like, they're all done. At some point, they need to change sports or
Oh, yeah.
take a break. The same is true of school. I think it's fine to take a little break, but I also think that completely abandoning school, coming home from school on Friday afternoon, whatever grade you're in, and then putting the books and throwing them in a corner and leaving not touching anything until the 5th of September comes, is not a very smart thing to do. And most kids, and therefore most parents, should find a way of introducing. There are lots of things they can do.
There's a middle ground.
Dr. Vargas has addressed this well, talking about visiting the museums, taking trips, educational trips to places, going to camps that are educational, just reading 3 books a summer.
Mm-hmm.
Age-appropriate books is
Oh, yeah.
a wonderful way of keeping. We just got a text from a teacher in the district who says we should capitalise on the fact that Manchester requires the least amount of credits to graduate. We require 22 credits to graduate. Pinkerton requires 23. Bedford requires 23. Goffstown 24, etc. Let's market this and rally for out-of-district tuition students. Maybe it's 20 instead of 20. Do you know how many
I
graduates?
think it's 20.
20, yeah.
I'm pretty sure when I was in high school it was 22 or 23.
Right. Yeah, because we lowered it in the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
So what do you think of that? His idea is to go and reach out to students in other districts and say, come to Manchester, and you only have to get 20 credits to get a cert.
I don't think that's necessarily the best way to market us.
Yeah.
I think there's other things we could market for sure. I don't think the number of credits would be a good one to point
Right.
out. I think more credits might be a better one, just because we want you to achieve higher and
Right.
go further.
I know a young man who was being transported daily from Lowell, Massachusetts, to West High School for the last at least 60 days. And he was one of those kids who has, from a family who the parent is a parent in one city and a parent in the other. So he qualified to go to West because of a parent at West, but it was, however, domiciled or living in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going to West. The reason why he was going to West was because of the 20 credits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So and getting transported
That's
on
interesting.
on the public dime
Right.
to travel every day. How much did that cost to travel every day, Lowell to Manchester to complete an education at Manchester? Yeah, Manchester requires 20. I just had it confirmed here. I think perhaps what this teacher is really saying is, part of the cutbacks we've had is we have lowered the graduation qualification in the city of Manchester to 20 credits. Therefore, we're lowering the bar, and that's another reduction. So we're
Right.
reducing in any place we can. It costs more, I'm sure, generally, to bring a kid to 24 credits than it does to 20. And
Yeah.
at that point, we're talking, many kids qualify, as you know, graduate with, there are kids ready in the middle of their junior year with 24 credits.
Yep. I had 2 students graduate early, actually.
Yeah.
They were technically juniors and they graduated this year.
Right. And they can do that, and some stay on. Anyway. So one of my kids, went to college, is doing a double major, and basically was a sophomore walking in the door. At college now, because she's doing a double major, she's going to be able to do it within the 4 years. If you were to pick something in the as a teacher in Manchester, let's talk about something positive for a minute. Like why do you think? I mean, you're in Manchester at Memorial because you're a Memorial guy. You
Right.
went to school at Memorial. Your heart is there, obviously. But what about What would you say to somebody listening who is on the fence about having maintained their kids in Manchester or sending them to Manchester? What's like something that's tangible that you would say is good about school in Manchester?
I think it's the people. I think you learn a lot from the kids around you and from the teachers and from the overall experience.
Right.
That's kind of a hard thing to grasp. You have to be really open to that, I guess.
Right.
But the people, I learn a lot from people just around town.
Right.
And you have to be very open minded to do that, though. I think that's
Yeah.
one thing I always, say to my students is, have an open mind with anything
Right.
we do. If someone disagrees with you, that's fine. Just listen to their opinion, and it's an opinion.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think the people is a
Okay.
big thing. The diversity, different types of students. When I was at St. Anthony's and St. Joe's, coming to Memorial was like shell shock
Yeah.
because it was a very different culture, and that was good for me. I liked
Yeah.
the culture a lot, and I learned a lot.
Well, one of the decision factors when we, probably the primary decision factor when we moved our kids from each one of them as they came out of elementary school, Catholic school, coming in, some of them in at sixth grade, but some stayed through sixth grade there, but others only until five, and then came into middle school and on to high school. One of the primary factors had to do with the diversity and size of the school populations, because the two least diverse states in the union are Vermont and New Hampshire, and your kids are going out into the real world and they're going to be in those schools. We got a quick call from somebody.
Sure.
Hi, caller, go ahead. I just missed them. Sorry, is a caller there? Sorry, I missed you. I'm sorry, caller, missed you. And we're down. We're very low on time anyway. I'm sorry if I hit the wrong button, caller. If you have, we have about 3 minutes left. If you want to make a quick redial, we could try. But one of the things had to do with the diversity issue of the schools and the experience that the kids would have in those
Right.
schools, because they.
Why
Because
3 minutes? You can come on you can bleed into my show.
Okay.
I tried calling you. You must have known it was me.
Okay. I don't know what just happened there. I have no idea.
If you want to continue, you can go on.
Okay.
We won't drive you out this time.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Like last week.
I get it. Okay, I was a bit. Okay, so there we go. Live television. I love it. So John Hopwood, who has the show that's on live right after this one, is saying we can continue for a few minutes. So, but we are heading to. Are you going to be going to City Hall tonight for the?
I am. I'm going to check it out for a little bit.
There?
I don't know how long I'll be able to stay.
Yeah.
'cause
But it's not starting at late, as I told you now, because
It's 8:00. Yep.
Yeah. So
Should be an interesting meeting for sure.
It should, and once again, in the city of Manchester, we'll find out what the future of our. The point, the reality to me is, if the people of Manchester could actually look in the faces of the kids and see the kids who are not getting the services they require. When you go down through the grades and even up through the grades, and you see the kids who are falling by the wayside because of the lack of resources, it is just unconscionable. And so if they actually could see the results of their decisions or the decisions of their public representatives, it's easy to see things like facilities and technology and things that are lacking in the schools. And you go to other schools and you see beautiful fields and beautiful tracks and
Right.
beautiful science labs and wonderful, community spaces within a modern high school, and that whole thing. But some of that is superfluous, right? It's not superfluous, but it's superficial, right?
Right.
But the fundamental pieces are number of kids in a classroom, etc., and so I'm trying to read a note I'm getting. I feel like I'm commentating on the general election or something, and someone's. Okay, so. Anyway, we're down to. I'm sorry for the messed up end of this. Ben, thank you very much for being on. We're down to the last couple of seconds.
Thanks for having me on.
Regardless, I'm sorry for the interruptions at the end. We'll have to do it again.
Definitely, yeah.
Good luck in everything you do, and your hard work on behalf of the students of Manchester. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thanks, Ben. All right, folks, thank you for staying with us, and we'll see you again this time next week. All the best from Jim O'Connell. Bye-bye. And from Ben.